Whakalafolaya to everybody. Hello.
Talofa.
Awesome. So, for those people that are tuning in for the first time, my name is Karl Vasau, and I'm currently the principal of Rowandale School. I've been doing these Talanoa Ako programs for quite a while now, and I was specifically chosen years ago to lead with alongside a beautiful lady who will introduce herself shortly, the English version of these Talanoa Ako parent programs. And so I'll let my beautiful co-host introduce herself.
Hi everyone, Talofa. My name is Oliana Eniata, and I'm a teacher at St. Paul's College here in Ponsonby, Auckland. Yeah, I'm excited. It's week 3, so I'm excited to have this session with you. It's a big one, so yeah, I'll get back to Carl, who will lead us and drive us today.
And so, the previous sessions we've looked at different things that, like, so the goals and aspirations was the last one, and we touched on ways in which families can engage with each other and make sure that they use Talanoa as a family to put down what their goals are, what their aspirations. And then, of course, right back to week 1 where we talked about getting into the new year and making sure that as parents, we're supporting our children wherever possible to ensure that they had a great start to the year. So, any dramas in your household about the start of the year, Oliana?
Oh, lots of dramas
Family?
trying to get my it's my daughter. It's my daughter in high school. It's trying to get her up. It's been quite difficult. But yeah, like we said, like we discussed earlier on, it's getting back into those routines. What's really, really important, and making sure our children are, having a good morning as well. We don't want to be screaming in the morning, but I've had to do a little bit of that this week and last week. So hopefully, this week they'll be a bit better.
Yep. And we go through that even as adults, when you do
Yes.
something new and we go somewhere new and we want to impress, we want to get there. And then, of course, it's cold in the morning sometimes, or it's hot, or you've had a long weekend. And so, what's important is that if education is a priority for your families, because remember, Oleana and I both agree that education is one of the greatest tools to open any door. And if they can get it right, they don't have to get it amazing, but if they get it right and get a good start, these will create really good behaviors for the future for when they get into the workforce or when they, start looking at, aspirations for themselves and so forth. So, I'm sure Oleana and myself had some struggles when we were young to stay motivated and to get into school. But if you can help, I can tell you the difference is if a parent is there, making sure that they've got the time for their kid and making sure that they are supporting their child with preparation for school. The sky's the limit for how they can go. And so this week, we're looking at the new New Zealand curriculum. And a curriculum is something that drives education and it lays out a plan for where you want to go. Now, most schools have their own localized curriculum. And so they take into account the knowledge that is set for important stuff from the government, from the ministry, from what we call the New Zealand curriculum. And then they incorporate some of the knowledge and some of the understandings from the local community that they live in, and as well as the children at school. So they make a rich, localized curriculum. And so recently, the New Zealand government have announced that, part of their policies is that they want to create a knowledge-rich curriculum that clearly outlines what the learners need to know, and it's very clear as to what level they need to be. Um, it's about the students knowing everything that they need to know at different levels, and then there's that consistency across. The refreshed curriculum, or you may hear the words te matai aho, started with a mandatory implementation of the English and the maths. So lots of our schools over the last few years have been doing professional development in maths and English, just to make sure that there's that consistent approach across the schools. But this goes from year 0 right through to year 10. Now, 0 is when they just start school at 5 years old, or, when they tune at 6. So that's 0. And the key changes include more of a focus on structured teaching approaches, things like phonics, the foundation skills, and it's a big shift in education. Now, my own personal school has been on a really big journey in relation to structured literacy, and it goes back 5 years, and our structured numeracy approach is 3 years old. And we're seeing those shifts and those changes. So the curriculum is going to be aligned and aligning a little bit closer to that. Alongside this, in the New Zealand curriculum, there are different areas of the curriculum. So maths and reading and English are just two elements of the curriculum, and so they've got a staged process of rollout. So we've got the revised science and the social sciences, including history, but those will be rolled out closer to 2027. So 2026 is this year, and all schools have to implement the changes in relation to the maths and the English curricula. And then, like I said, 2027, they'll see some rollout of the science and so forth. The arts, technology, languages. So you can see that, these other areas are very important as well. 2028. Now, the social sciences, when we talk about differences and changes that the social science curriculum will look at, is about aligning the New Zealand and the global history stuff. So our children will learn about the rich history we have in New Zealand, as well as some of the real key things that have happened around the world that shape the world and how we see things. So that's important to know, as well as including subjects like civics and financial kind of education, financial literacy. And of course, the science will focus on that natural world. In secondary, have you heard of any of the changes there that are incorporated into the secondary, Oliana?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes that are happening, and like as Carl said, like everything has started this year. So like every school in New Zealand has, they're required to use the refresh curriculum for English and maths. And yeah, and I guess well, I guess like with with the CAAs. So we know that with the CAA, so the literacy, so you need, our students need in year 10, they need like 10 credits for literacy, 10 credits for numeracy. That's still the same, but they need those 20 credits. Like they can't get their NCA, their level 2 and 3 if they don't have those credits. So they won't be able to get the NCA. They won't be able to pass until they get those credits. But they can take that assessment like any time. So I guess if they don't pass it in year 11, they can do it in year 12. They don't do it in year 12, they can do it in year 13. Once they get those 20 credits, then they would have passed the NCA, level 2, level 3. So I think, as we know, like the government's still rolling out some changes. So at the moment, high schools, I guess we're still learning as well. We're still adapting to all these changes that are happening. Still, still waiting on some changes this year, beginning of this term. So, yeah. But I think what's really, really important is, whānau, parents, you need to go straight to the source, go straight to the teachers, go straight to the school. Okay, and I guess that's one of the biggest questions parents ask. That's what's really important, eh? How do I know really doing? And I guess that's some more changes that are coming. So I'll talk more about that later. Carl,
Nice.
sorry. I hope
Yeah.
hope I added something.
Yeah, and so as Oleana rightly pointed out, what's important is that parents need to be abreast and knowledgeable about these changes, but schools also need to keep parents informed about some of the changes that are happening. So this structured literacy and numeracy focus right across from 0 to 10 is all about ensuring that our children, our students, have the skills needed to successfully embark on and succeed at NCEA once they get to those levels. So having a competent literacy and numeracy ability is vital for how they can move forward. Alongside this, we talk about the importance of, having assessment to ensure that we can cater for and address the needs for all our students. And so a shift to a more consistent data-driven monitoring system. And a lot of people at the moment are talking about this new tool which is rolling out, which is called the SMART tool. And so I know Oliana School has been involved in a little bit of unpacking of that. Do you want to share a little bit of light on, assessment practices that are aligning to the change in the curriculum, and and even with the theme about reporting to parents and use of that kind of tool, that smart tool?
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, with questioning like how do I know how my child is really doing? So with the new curriculum, been some changes on how teachers will report to you. So we're moving towards things called like progress markers and progress descriptors. So I want you to think of these like as a signpost on a roadmap. Okay, instead of I think usually sometimes, you might get your child's report, and it might be a bit like I guess a bit vague or maybe it might be generic. Okay. I guess with these new markers, it allows you, to show exactly which step of the learning journey your child is at and exactly what the next step is. So it's supposed to like give you, clear, plain English information about your child's progress. Um, and so yeah, that's what progress markers are. So yeah, they just tell you exactly where your child is on that map right now. And the descriptors, like I said, are just like a sentence, describing what they've mastered. I guess, if you understand. So instead of saying, your child's doing well in English. It might say your child can now confidently write an essay using evidence. Okay, it's supposed to like actually help you, see the growth that your child has made. Yeah, so and with that report, you'll see that your child will sit on a scale. Can I say it's a little bit like national standards or sorry, Carl. Yeah, I feel it's a little bit like national standards, but it'll also tell you instead of having, I guess we have like not achieved at the moment, it's not achieved, achieved, merit, excellent. So what's going to happen now? It's going to say it's changing to what you're going to see on the report as emerging, developing, consolidating, proficient, or exceeding. Okay, so that will be what's going to be what you'll see. We're so used to seeing, the N, A, E, M, but that will slowly change to those five things on a scale. So I guess the goal is every student needs to be proficient by the end of their school level, so they're ready for like the next year's level. And yeah, I guess I know it says like developing, but I guess with developing it just means that they're on their way. Okay, they're on their way. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Carl,
Yeah.
about these new changes?
And any new change, a good school is going to spend time trying to help parents unpack these. And so some of
Yes.
those terminologies that you hear about exceeding and things like that, what schools will do, especially mine, and I'm sure St. Paul's is the same, is help parents unpack those so that they can give more concrete comparisons to what they're trying to say. It's important that schools spend time. If you get a report that you're not sure of, like Oliana has said already today, spend time going down and seeing the teacher, asking for it to be unpacked so that you can actually see exactly what it is. We can't all be expected to understand. There's so many things that I read sometimes and think, what does this mean? What is important is that if you have that, you need to either seek someone that's going to be able to support you. So within your own family, or you might have that sister that knows everything, those kind of ones. Then you can ask her, or you can go right down to the horse's mouth and go down to the schools. What's important is that when parents read these new reports and this new reporting system, it will be clear to you what things your child can do, what things your child needs to develop, and where they need to be by the end of the year or by the end. And then knowing what measures the school's putting into place. But also, what's important is that you should be asking, what can I do better at home as well, just to support our kids? Because it is definitely a partnership. And when we look at some of these reports, the information is clear. It is not just for the school to address some of these needs because I know that we are equipped in some of our homes to support our kids best and to set up those learning conditions that will help them at home when they're going to that home learning. So
Yeah,
lots of
Carl.
this change is new, Oliana, and
Yep.
it's about us navigating it and trying to get our heads around it. But when we know, you will know. I promise.
Thanks, Carl. And I guess that that goes alongside the new curriculum. Teachers are also using like these updated assessment tools. So, we aren't just teaching differently, we're checking learning differently too. And I guess these new tools are designed to match what Carl was talking about, the knowledge-rich approach that Carl was talking about earlier. So these new assessment tools are going to help us identify gaps in, I guess, some understanding much, faster. So for you as parents, this means, you can spot if your child is struggling with a specific concept early. Okay, and put like, working together, like Carl said, having that partnership and putting the right support in place, before they fall behind. And I think, a lot of our tamariki, that's what's happening. We don't want our children to fall behind. But that's, we still have, odd children here and there that, get through those cracks there. And yeah, we need to be a bit more onto it, especially as teachers. So to make sure, these markers are accurate, we're using, tools to check in on, our students' learning. And, these aren't always like big, scary exams. Okay. Could just be little check-ins. Um, you know, but, this year, uh, in 2026, teachers will start using a tool called SMART. Okay. And I guess it's a check-in on progress twice a year. So I've had a little play around with it, Carl. I don't know if you have, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a literacy and numeracy test. Um, and I guess for high school, years 9 to 10, we use them to see if students are ready for NCA. Okay. I don't know what they use it for primary. Maybe I think I heard it was is it like a bit of a phonics check? Is that
Yep.
right, Carl?
Bit of all. It's a bit of all. And there's different stages when they test you twice a year.
Yeah, so I guess that's the new assessment tool. And I know at St. Paul's we're going to start using it in term 2. But I know there are already schools out there that have started already on that tool. Um, I guess we know with NCA it's currently on undergoing like a review, and in the meantime, information for NCA is available through your child's school. So I feel that that's the best place, to get, the information. If you need information about NCA, it's best to go check your child's school. So I know families with older students, NCA was a major focus. It's important to know that, NCA is going through this change, and there's a lot of changes that are coming out for the next few years, and a bit of a transition period. So yeah, there's lots of information out there, but it's best to go straight to the school. Okay. I don't know how else to say that, Carl. I could
No.
just talk to you and say, this year is this, next year is this. So there'll be like a year level that will still continue NCA, but then you'll have, the other year levels that will start. I think that's the year nines that have started this year that will begin the new, as they are phasing NCA out to some certificates. So I think it's the year nines that will probably start that. So yeah.
Nice.
What do you
It's
think of the changes, Carl?
Yeah, like I'll be honest to goodness, it's all about making sure that there's a consistent approach right across, that when your child is measured in a certain place, that it's compatible for all schools, the way in which you report is consistent, the way in which the information, our parents, what's vital is like what we started this conversation, is about whatever the curriculum that the school offers, we need to make sure that there's a balance between whose knowledge is important and whose knowledge is being valued. And so as long as our kids can come to school, feel themselves in that environment, see themselves, hear themselves, be able to learn about themselves as well as other things, I think that balanced curriculum, that balanced assessment and their priorities is vital. And like we've said constantly, get down to your school, or if schools are listening, please make sure you have a time to set aside to unpack this with your parents. And so there's our theme today for our session 3, which was about the New Zealand curriculum changes as well as the new curriculum and a little bit about those assessment changes. Our next session, the heading is going to be well-being and hauora, as well as attendance, because this is really vital. Oliana will be leading us in that session. But until then, thank you for tuning in today. Any questions, please put them at the bottom. Throw them in there and we'll endeavor to answer them if you can, or share this and on-share this to others that are interested in listening. But apart from that, Oliana, have a wonderful week. Anyway, tune in then, and we look forward to seeing you online. So God bless you all. Good luck. Well done. And keep in touch.
Thank you. So far, so far.